Hi, I'm Shira Carpel.
And I'm Shayna Gaunt, and we're board-certified behavior analysts. At How to ABA, we provide practical resources, community, and support to ABA professionals. In each episode of our podcast, we will be having real conversations with real people, sharing real stories about ABA.
We'll share relevant strategies and actionable tips that will make us all better ABA practitioners. It's the ABA content you need that you're not going to learn in a textbook.
For the next few podcasts, we wanted to give you a sneak peek into one of our membership mentorship meetings. During these monthly meetings, we answer questions and discuss relevant issues to today's BCBA.
If you want to be on the next monthly membership call, become a member of the Behavior Resource. Somebody asked me how I feel about timers, countdowns for transitions. Somebody with a BCABA with 20 plus years of experience tell therapists to remove tangibles without warning. I have mixed emotions on this, and I'm kind of smiling here because, I have a 10-year-old. She doesn't have autism. I give her countdowns and warnings all the time because it's just in my nature. Like it's what I do for a living. So it's what I do with her. Okay, 1 more minute till dinner. Okay, finish that page. And then we're going to do this. Okay, it's 8:16, time to get out the door by 8:20. Come on, let's go. Constantly doing things like that. So it's just what I do. However, in our last webinar, we did it on Hanley and the tolerance and delay approach. And Hanley says, listen, like the world is made up of things that just don't make sense. You've got to go from here to here, and sometimes there's no warning and things just happen. And, you need to learn how to deal with that. And you need to learn how to teach people how to deal with that. So I can see both sides of the coin. Respectfully, I typically give people warnings and say, hey, listen, in 1 more minute, we're doing this, or, hey, I need this now, and blah, 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 blah. But the world doesn't work that way, So if you're teaching somebody who in their world, it doesn't work that way, you do need to teach them how to tolerate removing things without warning. And I agree with that. If it's in their world and that's a parent goal and that's, something they need to tolerate, then that's what you can teach. The other thing too would be, just like removing something without warning. Like if I have something, so I'm holding on to a pen and, I've got the pen or whatever, a preferred toy or whatever, because I'm the learner, and, the RBT, BCABA, BCBA, whoever comes along and literally rips the pen or rips the preferred toy out of the kid's hand. I just don't think that's respectful. There's better ways to do that. And then what does that kid learn? That child or individual learns that it's okay to rip things out of people's hands. So, from a respect standpoint, it's respectful to be able to give people some warnings. It's respectful to say, hey, listen, can I have that right now? But at the same time, like Hanley said, going back to this, the world's unpredictable. You need to have some unpredictability in people's lives. So.
Yeah, I think it's both. I think we can teach our students to tolerate things that are unexpected. Like we have a program for if there's a fire alarm, right? You're not giving a transition warning to get out of the building 1 more minute and then the fire is going to be here. You're getting out of the building, right? So you do want to teach them to respond to certain transition warnings. But I thought of right away the example of the snooze button on my alarm. I'm supposed to get out of bed the first time my alarm rings, but I never do. And if somebody forced me out of my bed, I would be so mad. I'd be like, no, these are my 10 minutes. This is my snooze. Right. And so, but on the other hand, if I have to catch a flight, I could do it. So I think that there's both where we have to be able to teach them to tolerate it, but be respectful when we can respect them, because I think that that's appreciated too. If we don't need to be, not giving them that warning and it's impossible to give it to them, then I think it's nice too.
I've also had certain individuals I work with who perseverate on transitional warnings. So some kids actually get very, very anxious when they see schedules or when they get that transitional warning. And, I'll give you an example. So, I've got kids and I always say visual schedules, we use calendars, give it to them. It's only respectful. And then I've got certain kids who are recess is next. I don't want to go to recess. And then the countdown to recess comes on. And, as Hanley would say, it's like the countdown to impending doom. Oh my God, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. What can I do to get out of this? Right. So sometimes transitional warnings can backfire because it's okay, 2 more minutes until impending doom. Okay. 2 more minutes till you walk that plank. So be careful. Sometimes, you don't want kids to have warnings either. So that's tough. Yeah. Someone said their son gets very anxious with the timer. Yeah. Like sometimes we do, right? So it really is learner dependent for sure. I felt like a politician when I answered that, Shira. It was like, okay, I'll give you both scenarios and then talk about nothing.
Yeah, no one wants to hear sometimes. Okay, this is a good question. Any resources for tolerating peers? Because the student is being removed to work independently most of the school day. So are they being removed because of challenging behavior? Or are they requesting to be removed? Are they not able to learn in a group? It sounds like it's challenging behavior if they're not tolerating being near peers. Right? Yeah, challenging behavior.
Yeah. I work part-time. I consult to people in a group home, and I've got one individual who can't tolerate loud noises, and I have another individual there who talks really loud, like his voice volume is so loud. And they're both on the spectrum. They both have to live together. It's a bad match. I didn't make the match. It is what it is. So what do you do about that? And what's happening right now is that the one peer who can't tolerate loud noises is actually aggressing against the peer who talks too loud. What do you do? It's a problem that needs to be solved. And, we went for, what do you do if you've got to tolerate a therapist, right? Like think about when you're coming in as a new ABA therapist, what do you do with a child? You pair yourself with reinforcement. So we're in this stage right now of the peer is now pairing himself with reinforcement. These guys are older, they're 25 or 30. But we did a reinforcer assessment, a preference assessment. And, the one individual who doesn't like loud noises really likes chocolate bars. Not that I want to give him chocolate bars all the time, but it's a tangible that the other peer can give. So every single time the peer not every single time, I would say twice a day, we have those little Halloween candies that the peer goes by and just tosses him a little box of M&Ms type thing. And they're really tiny. And that's working. So now all of a sudden this peer is now associating the loud guy with reinforcement. So that might be something you may want to pick a few peers to say, hey, listen, like obviously these 5-year-old kids or 6-year-old kids, whatever else, you can't really say, okay, little Billy, how you're going to pair yourself with reinforcement now. Obviously you can't say that, but in your head, think, okay, let me pick 2 or 3 key peers. Who are those key peers who are, listen to the teacher, who are my kind of goody two-shoe students who will do this for me, and see what they can do to pair themselves with reinforcement. Are there things that your kiddo likes? And if so, maybe just have the peers toss those things their way.
And then you want to think about forward chaining, right? So if that's where they are right now and they're out of the room 99% of the school day, can you put a system in place where they just have to tolerate, like Shayna said, doing something like preferred with another peer out of the room, and they just, accept a preferred item from a peer or whatever that is. And then slowly build in future steps. So once they could tolerate that, maybe they have to give the item to the peer, or maybe they have to tolerate the peer sitting beside them for 2 minutes. But just building up to them tolerating eventually very, very slowly being in the room, maybe being in the room doing a preferred activity for 5 minutes, and then being in the room doing preferred activity for 10 minutes. Like just think about how you can slowly build that up in a, forward chaining type of system so that eventually they could be in the room longer. And maybe they don't have to be in the room the entire day. Like maybe that's not a goal for them. Maybe their goal is to be in the room for half of the day and be able to use functional communication to say, I would like to leave the room. So those are all good skills.
I would also look at classroom placement as well. Not necessarily classroom placement, but, where the desk is within the classroom. Is it, within a group of peers, or is it, off to the side? Look at other environmental factors as well. Like if you can be, guaranteed that it's definitely the peers and that's why he's engaging in challenging behavior, then great. But maybe it's other factors as well. Maybe there's like a small buzzing sound in the classroom that, the child doesn't like, or maybe it's fluorescent lights, or maybe it's just really noisy, or they're too close to, their desk is too close to another desk, things like that as well. So take a look at kind of all those factors and seeing if you can make the environment in the classroom a little nicer for the peer as well.
So we had a question about teaching PECS. I'm just finding it. It's a 3-year-old starting to make a couple sounds, starting with the PECS system. Parents don't use it at home and not really feeling like he's, catching on. So what can we do, A, for the PECS, and B, he has a couple sounds, what can we do to shape those sounds? So let's start with answering the PECS part. So the first thing I would say is like lots and lots of modeling. So when introducing, when introducing any kind of AAC, first question is always consult a speech therapist if possible. Like, is there somebody on the team that you can work with, and choosing the right method for this child? Because PECS is just one. It is evidence-based, and, we all love using things that have data and are evidence-based, but there are so many other options that a speech therapist can help you work with. So definitely, if that's an option, that would be my first recommendation. And, if PECS is the one that you're going for, still doing lots and lots of modeling. Like, kids are not going to pick up a language, like learning a new language, just by you expecting them to speak it, right? They have to see us speak it. We have to speak to them in the language that we're expecting them to speak to us in. So you can model, you can use pictures, all of those things should be part of the language acquisition for the student. The other point is that when we are introducing PECS, we'll often at the same time be teaching, or at least checking, that they can discriminate. So the first thing would be discriminating, visual discrimination of objects. So can they receptively identify objects, one objects in an array? Can they match identical 3D objects? And ultimately what PECS is you're asking them to match non-identical 3D to 2D, right? So you're asking them to know that this cookie that may or may not look like this picture of a cookie are the same thing. And by giving me this picture of something that may or may not look like the thing you want, I understand that you want that thing. So you can see how many skills are involved in that. Visual discrimination being one of them, but also receptive identification of objects, matching non-identical objects. Like, there's so much there. So teaching that and teaching them the matching, the discrimination, 2D to 3D. If you do that and they really don't have that picture to object correspondence, and they don't understand that this 3D cookie is the same as this little picture on a white background of a cookie, you could do 3D PECS. So you can just, take a cookie that they love, their favorite cookie, and kind of like spray paint it so it doesn't like go bad, or like glaze it or something. And these actual objects can become their communication system. They could exchange the object and use that as communication. So that's another option. It doesn't have to be the pictures if that's hard for them. And this person in the question did say that she doesn't feel like the student is discriminating. They're not really looking at the picture. And it's true, like, it's very hard. And I've seen students really struggle with that discrimination piece. There are a lot of other communication systems that work a little bit more on like motor planning. So if discrimination is really hard for a student, I've worked with some speech therapists who use communication systems that work more on the student just memorizing where the buttons are, because sometimes you can't teach visual discrimination, like it just may not be something that they're going to get, or at least they need the communication system before that. So if things just always stay the same, and I know this is something in PECS, one of the things that kind of bothers me is that they keep telling you to mix up the pictures, right? Like they want you to, like, the student learns that the cookie is here, and then the next trial, you're supposed to move it to another place. And I have so many students who this is so hard for, because they've just gotten it right. And then you're moving it all around and you're saying, now find it in another place. And discrimination is challenging. So I've actually sometimes either kept it in the same place so that they can just memorize that the cookie is the top left corner and you don't have to look for it if the discrimination is hard. Or there are also different apps, on an iPad or something that work more on the motor planning piece versus the visual discrimination piece, because I've seen students who just really can't pick up on that discrimination.
I had a speech pathologist, going back to that point, Shira, I had a speech pathologist one time who said, No, don't mix up the text. Like, have you ever used someone else's phone and you're trying to find your app? Like if you pick up someone else's phone, have you ever tried to go, where's Safari? Or, where's my messenger? Or where is this? Or where is that? You can't find it because it's in a different place. So I actually had a speech pathologist who argued and said, no, like don't mix up the pictures. And I loved that. I stick to that all the time. Like, no, don't mix up their pictures. My apps aren't mixed up on my phone for that exact reason.
Yeah. And then the other part of the question was, how do you shape verbal sounds, right? Like you're teaching, you have this picture communication system, but you also want to shape verbal. So the first thing is anytime you're using those pictures or exchanging, we always recommend modeling the sound. So always use the word. It's not just about exchanging the picture, but if they're giving you a picture of a cookie, really having them look at your face, look at your mouth and saying cookie, and, pairing the sound, the word with the picture of cookie. The research does say that those types of AAC communication do support language and they're not going to replace it. So just keep using that verbal, which is great. And then the other thing is the echoic to man transfer, which is getting the sound under echoic control and then moving it, or is it man to echoic transfer? Yeah, no, echoic to man, right?
Yeah. I'm placing a link to a video in the chat for those of you guys who aren't live. Just go onto YouTube and Google Lynn Kogel Super Nanny. And it's a great video, but she's all about basically it's a PRT approach, but don't use PECS, don't use any of that, get the verbal right away. So, in her example, she's got the kid on a swing and she said, this child needs to use any vocal utterance before he gets the swing. Now, obviously the EO for the swing is super, super high. And I've showed this to therapists. I've showed this to parents. And it's great and it works well. However, kids do need, I personally think kids need certain prerequisite skills. So they need to have some kind of vocal capacity already within their repertoire, meaning that, if a kid is completely non-vocal, like there is no sounds coming out whatsoever, I don't know if this is going to work. So, Shira mentioned that for PECS, like matching is a prerequisite. I always say for any type of vocal imitation, gross motor imitation needs to be a prereq, because if a kid can't clap their hands or do some really gross motor imitation movements, how are they expected to copy your mouth? So getting that stimulus control from, a gross motor movement to a smaller and smaller movement to the mouth. Sometimes I work with kids who do some babbling sounds, but they're not under any stimulus control. So, a kid might go ba, 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 just as they're playing. And I might jump in there and go ba, 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 ba. And if a kid says back to me, ba, 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 because it's just part of their babble, I'm going to reinforce that. And wow, that was amazing. Sometimes if I'm over the top like that, I scare them and they never do it again. So obviously looking for the appropriate reinforcer for that, and really trying to get that vocal under stimulus control so that Shira said, once they're initiating with either a PEC or with an object or something, you can model the word and they can give you something back echoically.
I think that was a good summary.
All right. Awesome. I'm still trying to think if it's echoic to man transfer or man to echoic. It's echoic.
No, you're right. Because you have to get the echoic under stimulus
echoic to man transfer.
And then
right, everyone? Yeah. Someone chime in here.
Long. It's been so long.
No, it's definitely echoic to man. I have to talk myself through that.
Makes sense in my head.
Yeah, totally. I can view it. I can picture it because I teach it. This is like the whole scenario of when I'm training parents, even when I'm training certain staff, I have to, completely forget about all my ABA language and use normal language.
Yeah, we never use the terminology other than here, right? Like I would never tell a parent that, we're teaching echoic to man transfer. So
anyways, you guys, we're at the hour mark. Thank you guys so much for joining. I love this. I love hearing from you guys as well. If there's anything else, just put it in our community. I really encourage you guys to start answering things in the community as well. We are having our next webinar in 3 weeks' time. It's going to be on sleep I've actually got one of my colleagues who is a sleep expert on Thursday, February 24th from 12 to 1 Eastern Standard Time. She's going to be doing a webinar on sleep and sleep training. It's also going to be recorded, but if you can join live, do it. She's an amazing speaker and she's got some fabulous ideas. So come to that. And Shira, CEUs now, we've opened them all up, right?
Yeah, they're all available. So you could just, on demand, take the ones that you want. Also, we are like next week, I guess 5 days away from the ABA Forum. So if you guys haven't signed up yet, we really hope you guys come. It's a free virtual event, 3 nights, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday evening from 7 to 9:15 Eastern, where we're hosting different speakers on different topics. There will be an ethics speech, supervision, and then 3 other learning CEUs available. To attend the event is completely free. It's a really fantastic event where like hundreds of people come together. It's great. We make it fun and interactive. There's some socializing. And then if you do want to purchase the CEUs, they'll be available for purchase. They're super cheap, $12. Like it's not expensive, but even if you don't need the CEUs because you get them through us, it's still really fun to attend and just be able to see professionals from all over. So we really hope you guys come. It's the ABA Forum. You do need to register. So go to the website and please, we hope to see you.
And thanks so much, you guys, for filling out the survey that we just sent out as well. We chose a winner already. Thank you. That was really helpful for us. In the coming months, we're going to be revamping our website a little bit and just trying to incorporate more and more of your suggestions and feedback. So anything you've got for us would be amazing. Thank you so much for joining us for our discussion with members about questions that they have in the field. It is so great to be able to brainstorm and problem solve with such an intelligent and supportive community. If you've enjoyed these past few weeks and want to join us live for future mentorship meetings, become a member of the Behavior Resource at howtoaba.com/join. That's howtoaba.com/join. Thanks for joining today's conversation. Wherever you get your podcast, please go and subscribe, rate, and review so others can find out about us too.
For more from How to ABA, including free resources and ABA materials, visit our blog at howtoaba.com. And make sure that you're following us on social media for more practical tips and updates.